Okay, so welcome to the training on leadership slash associated students. Um, Before I start, I just want to get a feel here because I want to really start off with our icebreaker if I feel that there's enough time. Um, how okay are all of you about staying maybe like 10 minutes after the allotted time here? Like if we stop at 3:10, is that okay? Or should we just press on and move forward with Mackenzie's content?
I have another meeting at 3 that I want to make.
I also have to be
Okay,
meeting in
we'll
3.
just skip the icebreaker then. And Mackenzie, if you want to go ahead and share your screen and introduce the topic of associated students.
I just need permission to share.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, there you go.
Let me go ahead and pull it up. It should be right here. Let me click on there. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Let me present. All right. So, Chris, should I just get started?
Yeah.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for coming today to our little ICC training. My name is Mackenzie Rivera, and I'm the president of Associated Students. And I'm here to talk to you a bit about what Associated Students is, the different aspects of it, and then to talk about AS elections that we have coming up. There we go. Okay. So who we are as Associated Students, so Associated Students is made up of 12 current PCC students that are elected every year, which we will be talking about those elections at the end of this presentation. And what it is that we do is we run different committees and act as student representatives, and we're generally the main source that faculty and staff come to at PCC when they want some student input, or if they just need some help finding out what is going on with the students. And so as you can see here, this is a picture of our little lovely office space, which if we were in person, you could find us in CC 212 in the Office of Student Life. And you can see presented down below is the current executive board, which I have the pleasure of working with. If you're ever interested in coming to our meetings, you can always come on Wednesdays from 12 to 2. But we live stream all of our meetings on YouTube on Wednesdays. Yep, I mentioned that. And we love having people come, and you can always speak during public comments or just see what it is that's going on. We would love to hear your feedback. And so you may be wondering, what is it that you do on the executive board? Because obviously it has to be more than just some fancy title that you're given. And so one of the main things that we do is we sit on shared governance, which if you're not sure what shared governance is, I essentially think of it as a space where representatives from different parts of campus come together to make decisions and have discussions on different topics. These things can range anything from some social justice issues that are going on and how it's impacting our students. If we need any changes in the academic calendar, like how we are no longer having winter, that was something that was really talked about the past year. There's different aspects like that that will be talked about, and it really ranges in each of the committees that you are a part of. And one of the big ones is College Council, where there's one representative from each of the existing groups on campus, like Academic Senate, Board of Trustees, and just lots of different groups. It's a really good one to get involved with if you want to be part of the main hub on campus and find out where everything is. Generally, this one is mostly just for approving things that are going around on campus, like different policies and such, but it's still really fun to go to. As a student, you can sit in on these. While we as associate students do sit in on these, it is more than just us who can sit on these. As the student representative, we can also appoint our committee members or just regular students who are really interested in getting involved. And so if this is something that you or any other students you know want to be involved in, you can always message anybody on the board and we can look for a committee that works best for you and your schedule. I forgot I can't click the little tab button. And so what are some other responsibilities we have? Like I mentioned earlier, we do have meetings every Wednesday from 12 to 2 p.m., which is known as the executive board meetings. And so here is when each of the board members with all of our advisors come to attend, and we discuss different things that we have going on, whether it's mostly our events, any statements that we want to put out in solidarity with different communities. And it's just the main way that we use to communicate with one another. And so we also have invited guests a lot of times come to our meetings, whether it's different staff members or people from outside organizations. And it's really the main way that we like to get together and just present with everybody and tell everyone what we have going on as individuals and what we would like to do as a board. And I know I didn't list a lot on what it is we have for our responsibilities, but this is the overall cap of what we all do as a group. Some of our responsibilities do range for each individual. So let's say as myself as president, I reside over the executive board, but I do attend a lot more meetings than the rest of my colleagues do. Like I meet directly with President Erica and her executive team. I do attend board of trustee meetings, which are 4 hours once every month. But then we also have vice president of campus activities, where their main job is to plan different events we have going on campus, like Spirit Week, homecoming, movie nights. And so really each duty ranges from each of the positions, but this is the overall arc of what it is we do. And so another thing that each of the vice presidents do is most of them chair different committees or subcommittees. And so some of these committees include things like campus activities, finance, student services. It really just depends which group that you want to be involved in, and they're always welcome to more students. And so what each of these committees do, a good way to overall summarize this is that they mostly plan and coordinate different events that they have going on for each of their fields, you could say. So let's say sustainability events may be working on a food drive or a nature walk, while student services may be planning a resource fair with different services that we have on campus. It really just depends for each of the groups, but overall, you could just say that they plan and coordinate each of the events with guided by the vice president of that committee. And within each of these committees, you can actually build different leadership skills and find different positions within these. I was a committee member myself when I first joined Associated Students, and within each of them, you can work your way up to vice chair, which is the second in command of that committee, or even the secretary, and help produce the agendas and minutes. And so if you want to be involved with Associated Students but don't want the full leadership of the executive board right away and want to find a way to sort of start building yourself as a leader, this is a really good way to get involved and just to find out different things that are going on campus. And there are a total of 10 different subcommittees that you can be a part of. Some of them I believe are still taking applicants, and so if you are interested, you can find them on Land to Life or just email the head of that committee that you're interested in. And so to talk a little bit about my AS journey, I've actually been a part of Associated Students for the past 3 years. I joined fall 2018, my first semester, and I was a part of the Campus Activities Committee and the Cultural Diversity Committee, which is now no longer titled by that name. It is now Student Equity. And so what I did within each of these committees is I became the vice chair of campus activities, and actually later on ran for the vice president of campus activities the following year and won that election. I was also the secretary of the cultural diversity committee because I just wanted to get really involved and start building my leadership skills. And so after being on the executive board for a year, I decided that, hey, I really like this organization. And especially now that we're going on remote, I think I could really help the next group of people we have coming in. And so that's how I ultimately decided to run for the president's position. And I did win that election by 2 votes, which it really goes to show you that every voice counts on this campus. You may feel that you're just one number in the thousands of students we have on campus, but that kind of just went to show me that every voice matters, every student input matters. They each have different power. I was so close to not being in this position. It just really goes to show me that you do matter on this campus, and it's just really encouraged me to keep doing the best job that I can do in this position. And so now that I've sort of shared my story a bit with associate students, I do want to promote some AS elections that we have coming up. Like Chris has mentioned in ICC several times, we are looking for people to fill positions for next year's board. And this is a really good group of people to get involved. You are all amazing leaders being in ICC. You have been here consistently, even throughout the pandemic. And these are the kind of people that we do want leading this group. And so there are 12 different positions that you can run for. You can find more information on Lance Your Life. The applications are due Monday, April 26th. And I would just really encourage you to get involved, even if you're not absolutely certain if this is something you want, but if it is something you would like to consider, start filling out this application so that you have that option. You can always choose later on that this isn't the position for you if you don't feel it's the right match. But I would just really encourage you to go on out there and just try, because you never know. I didn't know what kind of a leader I was going to be before I went into this. I was very shy before coming onto this campus, and now I'm here leading a presentation to you, telling you how great of an organization this is and how much it changed my life. And so I would just really encourage you to get involved. And that's all I have for my presentation. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask me any, whether it's through chat or in person. And I'll just stop sharing my screen for now, and I'll let Chris go ahead and continue on with this.
Yeah, so thank you for that very thorough presentation, Mackenzie. This is a roundtable after all, so I will pause at this time to see if there are any questions from Mackenzie about what it's like being a leader in her position, being pretty much at the head of AS. So yeah, I mean, does anyone have any questions here, Mackenzie, or maybe want to share their own personal experiences being a leader in their club? Lisa or Sophia?
Any advice for someone who's starting off pretty much from like the ground up, trying to like reestablish the Veterans Club?
Say,
Sorry, that
Oh,
was
go ahead, Mackenzie. No.
because I have been in this position of ICC before. I was actually an ICC rep too last year, even though I was my first camp activities. I was the ICC rep for AGS. And so I guess my advice for this, because we did have concerns about keeping up memberships and stuff, there's always people interested, in just keep up the hope as you're doing this, and just have faith in yourself as a leader, and just trust those around you too. And just remember to ask for help when you need it.
Yeah, that last one's pretty important. Thank you.
Chris, do you have anything? No problem.
Yeah, I mean, we're all pretty much in the same orbit, right? I mean, I was an ICC representative before I came to lead the entire group. And I actually started a club, and I can say, having started a club, it's very hard being the founder and being the starter of anything, because you have to metaphorically roll that ball up the hill and get it, past the threshold, so to speak, right? But the thing that I will say that has really helped me in kind of, bringing that club to what it was utilizing all of the resources around me, right? My club was the Rosemead Club, right? So I invested heavily in that campus. Like, I visited that campus even more than I visited the main campus. I talked to the dean. I was friends with the dean. I was friends with the front desk people. Anytime I wanted to do something, or anytime I needed anything from the campus, in terms of whether it be, school supplies to hand out during finals, or whether it be like, hey, can I put this bin here to drop in for students to drop in recyclables? There was like, yeah, Chris, you can do that, whatever you want, right? So it's a matter of really making those connections and making those, taking advantage of the resources around you. I will say, based off of where you're at in the Veterans Club, you already definitely have a resource right in front of you, being the Veterans Program. You have the advantage of not only being a club on campus, but also being part and being very, very connected to that program, the Veterans Program on campus. So use that to your advantage. I know that even the Veterans Club has their own source of funding from time to time. So use that, right? Harness that power. I know Carol is the advisor for the club, but also runs the program. So if you have any issues or anything that you want to problem solve, consult with her. When we are back in person in the Veterans Club, I mean, the Veterans Center gets started up again, be a presence in that space, right? Like, go around, be like, hey, we have a club. I want to join a club. These are the benefits of joining a club. This is what we do as a club, and things like that. So those are the tips that I could give you specifically for you being a Veterans Club. But for all the other folks here that are part of ICC, definitely use your resources, right? Find people and find places that you can connect with and take advantage of those things.
Thanks, man. That was a really good answer. I appreciate it. And like you mentioned, I have been in communication with Carol and everyone down at the VRC as someone who's been part of the VRC and working with those people, that it was really them who helped me at all, like even get started. But it's difficult trying to get a hold of veterans because like we sent out an email list like, hey, come by our meeting at 3 p.m. and not a soul responded. And I personally sent all the emails to like every registered veteran on campus. No one
Right.
responded. And it like blew my mind. I was like, wow, not even one person. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely now we're working through that abstraction of being remote and being online, but don't give up. It took me a while to find people too, but here's the thing, right? You want people that the people that take the first step are the people that, in my experience, are going to probably be the most dedicated to your club. At least the first couple people I found, that was the case for me. Like they're like, oh, because they're willing enough and they're daring enough to dip their toe in the water, and like, yeah, as Sophia is saying in a chat, that want to be there, right? So kind of flip the script and don't think like, oh, I send out emails to like 500 people and no one responded. Like eventually you'll get a hit, and really like associate with that person, because the person that is willing enough to give you a shot, right? Even like when you're applying for jobs, it's the same thing. This was me coming out of high school. Like it's the same for so many things in life. Don't be discouraged. You have to have that kind of persistence.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. So are there any other, what was the topic originally again? I'm sorry. I just kind of like, Mackenzie, what were we? Can you put us back on track?
Sort of some like advice for clubs, leadership, any questions about like associate students being part of it, those sort of things.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions that particularly pertain to your club or just in general being a leader of their club? Or questions for Mackenzie about what it's like to be a leader?
Okay, let's ask Mackenzie. What is it like to be a leader?
What's it like to be me in this position?
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting. Honestly, first coming into it, I didn't know how well of a job I wanted to do. All I knew is that this was something that I wanted to do and that it was worth trying. Trust me, there were many days where I didn't know if I could do this, and I was just thinking, I'm like, should I just resign and have somebody else do this? But at the end of the day, all the hard work ends up being worth it, especially when you get to see like other students that you impacted, or just working with the executive board, or like talking to my advisors. And I'm like, wow, like I'm able to be here and I'm able to do all this. And just seeing from where I've come from, like I came straight out of high school into PCC, having never done club leadership or student government or anything like that. And so having been just a regular committee member to being now the president of the whole organization is just really cool to see.
Thank you. Growth.
I love that question. As you can, Chris can tell you, I love talking about myself and the organization.
But that's the good thing. It shows you're your face lights up as you're talking about it. So it's encouraging, because I'm sure it's a ton of responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like you're in the right place, Mackenzie. I have a question, just in general, like since you've been in leadership for 3 years, what are certain things that you've learned throughout the years, and then especially during COVID, is there anything that was valuable instead of depressing of this year?
I think the biggest thing would be like trusting yourself as a leader and knowing when to ask for help. Asking for help from other people or from advisors does not make you a bad leader. It doesn't mean you're weak. And everybody has different leadership styles. And so try not to compare yourself too much to other people, and just remember what's your reason for being here. Sort of what's your center for being in this position? Like what's going to drive you at the end of the day? Because I know when COVID first hit, I had a really hard time with this transition, and I didn't know how I was going to do everything. But I think just remembering that you do have support, even if it doesn't seem like it, even when there are dark times, that there are people there to help you, and just remember to reach out to them. And it goes both ways too. Just reach out to your people and have them reach out to you as well. And it's going to help you at the end of the day. I'd say trusting yourself as a leader is one of the biggest things, because I know I've had doubts in myself before, but then just remember, people do notice you. You are going to be recognized for what you do, even if it doesn't feel like it at first. It's always worth it in the end.
Thank you.
Any other questions or anything? Anybody have any leadership questions from Chris? He's been around for a while too.
Yeah, I was
Yes,
actually going to ask. Oh, I'm sorry. No, go ahead, Elisa. I asked plenty. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Sophia. What would you say that was the most challenging thing about joining leadership?
So before college, like in high school and in middle school, I was not involved in any student government or student leadership at all. And so, you know, running for the first time and trying it out for the first time, I had a lot of doubts that I wouldn't be able to do it, because I told myself there had to be a reason why I couldn't get in, you know, during those years. But so that was hard. Like that was hard. Like that initial milestone before that, like that was the hard part for me. But coming into it and having done it, what became more apparent was that I just didn't realize the amount of work it was to make things happen in the background. Like, for example, right, in the meeting, I have to have so many things come together. Like I have to have an attendance sheet. I have to have a vote list. I have to have minutes be done. I have to have every week, you know, I have to make sure that the first page of that agenda has all the people that need to be marked for being here. So that was definitely a challenge, but I overcame that because I feel like I kind of was able to take advantage of my skills being, you know, experience of technology and being a really organized person and figuring it out. So that was kind of the second milestone for me. It's like learning about, you know, all these soft skills, right? Like how to deal with so much pieces of data and distilling it down into a format that people can understand. Like you just sit in a meeting, you just watch me run around and do all these things, right? And sit down and have people understand, you know, what I'm trying to communicate. So that's kind of the second milestone that, you know, that I achieved, you know, and that was the second challenge for me. So it's like, I don't want to keep going because I can go on forever. Like I always set these kind of little goals for myself, but I can say like initially those were kind of the first two capstones for me of like what was difficult about the position. But I can definitely say being in this position for 2 terms already, it's definitely gotten easier. Like I always tell my secretary Victoria, there's definitely like you definitely get into a rhythm of things, right? You get into the groove. Like every week, I know I have to send out an email. I know what needs to be in that email. Every time a funding request turns in, I'm like, okay, I know what has to be, you know, checked for this request to go through. So, you know, it becomes easier, and you definitely become a better person out of it because it teaches you to become, at least for me, a more organized and more wholesome person, and not just my work, but also how I present myself.
Thank you, Chris.
I think someone else had a question too, but
Yeah, that was me. So my question is more of a generalized question.
Oh, you can leave staff
because-
for us.
I'm training, so I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I walking through? Can you see me? Sorry.
I apologize. So the generalized question is, so you don't have to have like pre-experience to do what it is that you sign up to do. I'm getting that vibe. But is there a point in time where, I don't know, let's just say you can't cut it or you don't cut it for whatever reason, where or there is a possibility for you to be told, okay, well, you need to be relieved of your duty because you really just can't do the job. I don't know, I've never heard anybody talk about that, but in my particular situation, because I'm a single mom, And because my schedule is not my own and I want to do this, I just want to make sure that the commitment I make is a commitment I can keep. Is there a possibility that if you're running short, someone will come to you and say, well, you know, you just can't do this, you got to go.
Chris, should I take this one or do you want to?
You can go first. I'm gonna stew on it for a little bit.
Okay. So honestly, you don't need any like former experience for anything. Like I've met plenty of people who go into leadership positions where sometimes they weren't even part of the organization when they joined, but they had been part of other ones, and so that helped them. I don't know if there's necessarily a point where you may not cut it. At least for me, I feel as though as long as you have motivation and drive, that you're always going to have a place at the table to be in these different positions. I know everybody has different sort of circumstances, like how you mentioned being a single mom. I don't think it's anything that will stop you in this position. There's always different, I think also, as long as you do have a good group to work with and they're willing to understand everything that you have going on, I feel though as though it'll work out. Like I know in our own group right now, we have a wide range of students on the board. We have people who came straight in from high school. We had people who took gap years. We had people who didn't go to school for like many years, people who had to repeat. We've had international students. We've had so many different kinds of students. And I feel as though we always found a way to make it work. And it's just, as long as you have the motivation to be here and do what it is you want to do, I think that you'll be all right.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, and I think more generally, when you feel like that, you know, there's two things that I guess I can say to that. One is, you know, I know it's like kind of an abused term, but it is very true. Like a lot of people feel imposter syndrome, right? It's like, how come I can't do this? I thought I remembered how to do this, or I thought I had the capability to do this, or I thought I had enough time, or whatever excuse may be. And that leads me into the next thing where it's like, instead of thinking of it that way, think of it how you can turn it into a story of how you overcame things, right? Because yes, it's true when it comes down to the wire and, you know, you are not doing what you're supposed to be doing in a job and you get let go or something, like, you know, don't feel like it's because I wasn't good enough. Like even if you lost a job, right? Like you can still turn that into a story of how you overcame. You will find a different job. You will find another way to make money. You will find another way to do things. So that's what I have to say to that. You know, like I said to Julio, you just have to be really persistent. You have to be really determined. I know it's kind of like a lot of big words, but that's kind of what I feel really helps me, at least, not just for my position, but just in life in general. Like I always find a way, like life finds a way, you know, you just have to be really persistent and turn it into a story of how you overcame things instead of just like, you know, dwelling in like, oh, I'm not good enough for that imposter syndrome thing, right?
Okay, that's very encouraging.
Okay, so I know we are down to 10 minutes here. I like where this is going. We can keep asking questions, or I can just buffer it with the icebreaker that I initially wanted to do before Mackenzie's presentation. So how do you all feel? Should we continue with this? Or should we kind of move out to our, well, not really an icebreaker now, but kind of a closer, I guess.
I have no opinion.
Okay, Sophia said closing is fine.
Yeah, I think we're in a good place to wrap things up a little bit.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and show this slide here. And for those of you who are watching this recording and are interested in running for AS, I'm throwing you a bone here because this question is actually what you're supposed to write for your candidate's essay in place of the signatures you're supposed to get. So I know there's a little bit of technicality with what I just said, but if you are interested in running, just know that the content that's going to be said here might be valuable to what you're going to write for your statement. So the question is, what does it mean to be a student leader during an emergency, right? I guess I can kind of go over roundtable format here because that is the title of the training. So we can start off. Mackenzie, you want to kick things off with answering this question?
Sure. So to me, being a student leader during an emergency means remembering that things are bigger than yourself and that there are other people who need you to be there for them. Not necessarily that you have to hold their hand or anything, but just remembering that you are going to be a guide and a voice for them. And so whether it's helping them directly, having conversations with them, or getting student input into different groups and everything, I just think it means continuing on even when everything feels hard, remembering why it is you became a leader in the first place, and just making sure that you keep carrying on at the end of the day, even when it gets hard. And remember to ask for help yourself too, because if there is an emergency going on, it's going to impact you as well. And so just remembering to being able to help others and also being able to help yourself. So that's my answer.
All right, thank you, Mackenzie. I'll give my answer and then I'll kind of give you all a chance to respond or ask questions. So what it means for me to be a student leader during an emergency is I want to utilize the skills that I'm good at and bring those to the table and help people in times of need. So my skill is that I'm really good managing data and maneuvering around technology. So for example, right, like what it meant for me during this pandemic to be in this position was to digitize ICC's procedures and to make things more transparent and more accessible online to everybody, right? So it's taking advantage. So just like I told Julio, like take advantage of your resources, take advantage of what's within you, your skill set and your strengths, and bring them out to the world and help the world, and uplift the world with them. So that's what it means for me to be a student leader, during really hard times. It's just bringing what you're good at and helping others with those characteristics. So I know we're kind of down to the wire here. So I want to go ahead and go around the table if all of you are comfortable responding. Either you can answer yourself or you can maybe ask a question to whoever else responded. You can ask a question to me or Mackenzie about what was the reasoning behind our responses, and we can go from there. So it can either be a question or a statement from yourself. So I guess we could start off with Sophia.
Yeah, thank you. So for me, what it means to be a leader during an emergency is to fall back on kind of what you said, what your skills are. I worked at a hospital for 15 years, so I'm keeping up with my CPR. Know that you need to be calm in the time of an emergency, and know what type of emergency it is. It could be God forbid, active shooter. I've been involved in that. Or it could be a student having a seizure. So for me, that's what I would fall back on. And the most important thing is then to be able to sort of semi-control the situation in the best way that you can by, delegating, someone call 911, someone come here and help me with this situation, especially if everyone is kind of chaotic and scared, which most people are during an emergency, but you react according to the level of the emergency.
Okay, thank you, Sophia. Who wants to go next?
So first of all, thank you, Sophia. I agree with what she said, but I also think that it's crucial to have a lot of prevention, not just with emergencies, but everything in general. I've noticed that in difficult situations, a lot of people would rather take care of the aftermath instead of preparing for difficult times. And especially now that there's a pandemic, I've noticed how prevention has helped me, like with a lot of things. For instance, I cannot get the shot myself because I'm high risk of anaphylaxis. So prevention has been key, even on simple things like that.
Thank you for that, Elisa. Anybody next? Either Julio or Sylvia, if you're comfortable asking or stating.
So What does it mean to be a student leader during an emergency? Well, for me, leading off would be keeping a level head, cool head. And to carry off what Sophia said, is actually a tip whenever in an emergency, you don't say, somebody call 911. You have to, you call 911. So this way someone calls 911, because if you say, somebody call 911, everyone's going to look around like, who's going to call 911? Yeah, you're calling 911. You grab me something. You do this. So whenever there's a situation like that where someone's having a seizure, a medical emergency, you need to pick someone out of the crowd or wherever's next to you, or you're going to do it. You can't rely on somebody else. But other than that, keeping your head on a swivel, staying alert, and looking for information to make your next move is the most important part. Just getting a full risk assessment and like an idea of what's going on. You need to have an overview of the situation so that you can respond correctly or call the people that can help you, necessary law enforcement, anything like that.
Right.
That's
And
it
it
for
kind
me.
of bounced off of what you said, Julio, and I guess also Elisa. I can see how the power structure of AS also mirrored, I think, what you all stated, which was really good answers, right? Like whether it be officially or not, Mackenzie has delegated me the technology person of the group. So I manage all the passwords, right? I manage if anyone needs help about how to stream to YouTube. She has delegated responsibilities to Philly, who is our publicity person. Like, Philly, you're going to create flyers for our events. You're going to be, you know, how we message our, you know, our thoughts to the public. So, you know, you can kind of see how, you know, all these things kind of emulate, you know, in real life. And to Elisa's point too, I think prevention is also a really great thing too that, you know, AS is trying to do. Like, at least for me, you know, I'm all about preparing, having a plan. Like every time I have like a to-do list, like Mackenzie can tell you, like I have a to-do list, my calendar has like blocks of time in it. But, you know, for me, what's most important is the legacy I leave, right? So I don't know who's going to be next in my position, I guess going back to elections and stuff, if any of you are interested in it. But I have and will prepare a set of manuals slash like a little pamphlet or booklet with things that people need to do when they're in my position. So, you know, it's like a checklist, right? Like 2 weeks before the semester starts, start planning for club week, because if you don't do it now, you're going to be overwhelmed. Before a meeting, you have to have an agenda. Before a meeting, you have to have an attendance sheet. Before a meeting, you have to tell your secretary to post all those things. So, you know, preparing definitely is in my cards, but I urge you all, you know, have a set of procedures, have a set of plans, very important, because that will pay dividends in the future. You know, again, leaning on to that legacy I'm going to leave, I don't want to leave the next person with like, oh, what am I going to do in the future? Or what am I going to do now and I'm in this position, right? And have them kind of learn as they go. I want them to have that information and feel secure once they settle in. And I know, unfortunately, Sylvia just left. I think she had to go to her next meeting, but I think that wraps things up in a nice, tidy bow for all of us here. We're right on time. Are there any last super quick thoughts before we close out our session here today or anything like that?
What exactly did I miss at the ICC meeting?
So when you sign up for my emails, I will send out like a little document called like the minutes. So that has notes on what happened during the meeting. The meeting is also recorded and streamed to YouTube. So if you want to go ahead and visit our YouTube channel and watch it, you can go ahead and do that. And I'll send you the link there. But that's it for today. If anyone else has any questions, you can stick around, but I'll stop the recording